Hello and welcome to Andy and Iain Talk Networking. I am Andy,
And I'm Ian.
and welcome everybody to another episode of just two old gits talking about networking stuff left, right, and centre. But today, Ian, I think what we want to talk about is something that's kind of again new to me, which is inline versus out of band packet brokers. And to me, as somebody who's come from kind of DSL technologies in the back, and we used to talk about inline in band management and out of band management and kind of all this kind of thing. I'm assuming it's something similar with regards to packet brokers. And when I look at kind of how we deploy observability today, kind of we put our taps in. We talked about taps and spans in the past, and we got our packet broker, which is kind of sniffing all this data. So how does a inline packet broker differ to an out of band packet broker?
Well, I mean, the simple answer, which obviously I like to give at the start, is it's totally different
Okay,
in the sense of an out of band packet broker is purely listening, like
right.
the kind of the glass on the wall, so to speak, listening to what's happening in the next room. You know what I mean? You're
Yeah,
kind
yeah,
of
yeah. So
very
it's snooping
removed
the
from it.
data that's going
Yeah,
past. Yeah.
you're snooping the data. Whereas when you move to the concept of inline, you're taking the packet broker is taking an active part in that conversation.
Okay.
So it is, probably lots of different ways to say it, but it's the idea that you're actually stopping the traffic. It goes via a series of tools,
Mm-hmm.
often, but not maybe exclusively security tools. Could be a firewall, could be, but maybe that's slightly different. Maybe I'll get confused on that. But the idea that the packet broker is taking that packet, sending it through a suite of tools, lots of health checks, making sure those
Mm-hmm.
tools are running, make sure the packet broker is running for that matter, and then assuming the packet makes it back to the packet broker because it's a permitted connection or whatever it might be,
Right.
it is then sent onto the network to carry on its journey. So it's quite different
Okay.
to the concept of the out of band packet broker. You know what I mean? That's just a very, very
Right.
different kind of model.
Okay. Yeah, so when you think about it in that way then, so in the past kind of we're just looking at everything that's going on the network just from an observability perspective. We're just observing what's going on, whereas really an inline is much more active. So you're bringing the packet in and presumably you're doing some kind of processing or filtering on the packet broker as well as maybe feeding that data out to, partner tools or secure, as you said, security tools who are maybe digging deeper into some of the contents of those packets and that data, and then feeding it back. And again, that comes back into the packet broker to be then forwarded back into the network.
Yeah, no, exactly, Andy, exactly. I think the other aspect to note is that there's not a lot of packet manipulation
Mm-hmm.
because you really want that packet to be as kind of as it
Untouched. Yes.
was,
Yeah.
but you are doing filtering. So it's the idea I have seen this packet, that it must go to this series of tools. Oh, this is a different type of packet.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to this type of tools over here. Once again, one example, once again, not trying to get on the thin ice. I'm sure we'll get letters or emails, I suppose, but or comments.
Comments.
But the point is, if you've got things like like an email tool that you
Mm-hmm.
want to be able to process email, but maybe you don't want to send out huge chunks of web traffic to that same email
Right. So you
processing
can.
tool as an example. So you're kind of filtering one way or the other. That's the kind of level that you're really talking about.
Okay.
So for example, you're not putting in a source mac replace timestamp as an example because you're kind of damaging the packet, you're changing the packet.
Right.
And very important that we're not doing that in the inline kind of context. So once again, lots of packet broker vendors are doing that kind of inline approach, that inline style, uh, to be able to service some of those security needs. And I think
Yeah.
that a lot of the not trying to get too stuck on a
No.
on a,
No.
on
No.
a kind
Sure.
of a rat hole, Andy, but obviously a lot of folks used inline systems when they were dealing with resiliency, right? It's the idea that
Right.
you could have multiple tools, let's just say security tools, whatever, security tools, and oh, that one has gone down as
Hmm.
an example, right? You're using the packet broker to determine that and make sure that those packets are not lost. They're then
Okay.
sent to other security tools in a like a tool group kind of concept
Right.
and things like that. So you were using the packet broker almost as a kind of a resiliency tool.
So you can actually use
Um,
it for fanning the data out into your tools. So you can bring
yeah,
it in on a single pipe and then fan that out into multiple tools based on a whole lot of different criteria that you've set within that
yes.
packet broker.
Yep, absolutely. But once again, it's about kind of, shall we say, it's a very different model,
Hmm.
and it also not only is a very different model, but it's also that idea of, where are you keeping that network running, right? Are you using the packet broker to be
Yeah.
able to keep the network running? Are you using other tools, bypass
Sure.
devices? Are they failing open in the case of, all of these kinds of questions? And once again, architects or network architects have been wrestling with this for, I wouldn't say many years, but kind of it's kind of
Yeah.
something that has been there for some time, making the decision whether you want to do things more on the inline side
Or as
or
a yeah.
more on the out of
Yeah.
band side.
And again, when you look at the architecture of the packet, presumably now that you're in line, your performance of your packet broker is going to be really important. And we talked about this a little bit in the past about, are all packet brokers built equally? Now, when you're in line, it's even more important that you can handle all of that data at full line rate and do the inspection. Otherwise, effectively, you're just, you are fanning the data out. But if you're just spanning it out at a switching kind of level, you don't get all that insight to what's going on with that data. And then you need another set of tools afterwards to be able to analyze that data.
Yeah, I think you've hit on something very important there, Andy. The concept of performance is vital. If you take a, let's just use the word basic, like too basic a system, then you're going to introduce more a risk and vulnerabilities into the overall system, particularly at that classic 9 a.m. in the morning or 8:50.
Yeah.
I know that's a little bit kind of passe, but that kind of idea when you're dealing with a more stressful time, you know, if you're a typical enterprise, 3 o'clock on a Sunday morning probably isn't the busiest time on your network, so therefore it doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
But during the day or during particularly busy times,
Yeah.
you need to make sure that you have enough headroom in your kind of packet brokering and all these appliances that you're
Hmm.
trying to put in the system. You've got to make sure you have enough headroom to be able to take that load.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think the key, as you say, is, bringing this data out into these tools and having, this ability to do it inline versus kind of out of band really gives you a lot of advantages with regards to really seeing what's going on, but also then having this fan out capability. But also you can change things on the fly. So one of the real nice things I think about maybe on an inline from what you're telling me is that you can say, actually, no, I'm more interested now what's going on here, and I can dig in a little bit more detail, maybe do some configuration on the packet broker, maybe do a little bit
Mhm.
more inspection, and I can also maybe start doing things like inline packet dropping if, for example, a DDoS or something like that is going on, or you've got some kind of application.
Yeah, if you can spot it, then yeah, you can certainly very quickly manipulate the devices to be able to make changes in that. Where are you sending that data? Or if you're trying to look at particular, oh, I'm seeing something that's interesting,
Yeah,
clunk, and then you can make a change
yeah,
and send the data off in a different direction, things like that. Lots of very powerful tools. And once again, the packet broker, that's the key part, right? So
right,
anybody
yeah.
listening to this,
It's the
they need
first
to
line of
pick.
defense
It
ultimately.
is it
Yeah,
is an element of that first line of defense. Is how are you as the architect or the network ops person, or how are you trying to make sure that your network is not only using the tools, all of the tools that you want to use
yeah,
all of the time, but also you've got to take that architectural decision. Are you going to go with a more of an inline model and using that as a resiliency kind of tool?
yeah.
Are you going to use other kinds of networking components to do more of an out of band system? You don't want the packet broker inline. There's lots of big questions. And as I say, if anyone's listening to this and they're a bit stuck, then hey, reach
Yeah,
out to
reach
me and
out
we
to
can
us
have a
and
good
we'll have a
chat.
chat. Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. No, I think that's a good place. That's a good point, and I think that's a good place to kind of wrap it up then. But obviously, we'll talk about what you do with that data and kind of how you store that in multiple other discussions going forward. But I think, as always, good discussion. Thanks for that, Iain. And again, I want to thank everybody for watching, and please feel free to click the like and subscribe button below. It really does help us. We appreciate everybody who does that. And again, provide feedback to us in the comments section about other topics you'd like Iain and myself to talk about. So with that, we'd like to say thank you very much for watching. I have been Andy.
I have been Iain.
And thanks, everybody. See you soon.
Bye for now.